How to catch inventions. To look for an invention, the first thing is to look for a disclosure. Inventions are nothing but disclosures which are made in a way in which you can get a patent granted. So, if the disclosure is patentable, that is what we call a patentable invention. So, where do you look for a disclosure? A disclosure, you have to bear in mind, is a written disclosure which is different from the physical embodiment of the invention itself. The physical embodiment is different from the written disclosure. For instance, this is how a remote control device looks like. There is an interface, there are some buttons, and typically it's in a standard form. This could be understood as a physical embodiment or how it will look if it is in its physical state. Whereas when the same invention is described in a written form, it is described as a disclosure. Here you have an invention. This patent describes an intelligent programmable universal remote control device which can be used by a user to control any device that responds to commands sent via infrared, Bluetooth, or other wireless personal network technology. Now, the description, as you just saw, the written description is much different from the physical embodiment itself. Normally, you would expect the disclosure to be made in what is called an invention disclosure form, or IDF for short. The invention disclosure form will have various columns which you would ask the inventor to fill. It could have something on what is the field of knowledge, it could have something on the background art, it could have something on similarities with existing inventions, it could have something on uses, advantages, the inventive features. So the invention disclosure form will have got a lot of information to be filled by the inventor. Another way to get information from the inventor is by interviewing the inventor. This is the traditional way in which the patent attorney interviews the inventor, asks a series of questions, gets replies to the questions, and eventually will be able to get a good disclosure from the inventor through the interview. How important is the disclosure? Now, the disclosure can be used to search the prior art. How effective the disclosure is will result in how good the patentability search report will eventually be. So the disclosure can be used to search for the prior art, and it can also be used to draft the patent specification itself, because it is the disclosure that the inventor makes that eventually gets into the patent specification. Requirements of a disclosure. Now, this is the language that is there in the Patents Act. It should fully and particularly describe the invention. Particularly means it should describe it with the details. It should also describe the operation or use. It should describe the method of performance and also the best method. Now, the best method is something which would be claimed. The best method of performing the invention will be claimed. And the claims by itself should be clear and succinct, and it should be fairly based on what was disclosed. The claim of a patent specification is the concluding part of the patent specification, where an invention is claimed. Claim should itself be based on the matter disclosed. So the disclosure is important because the claims are drafted or carved out of the disclosure. We had just mentioned that invention disclosure form is one way in which you can capture a disclosure from an inventor. Now, here in front of you, there is a typical invention disclosure form. You can just have a look at this. Now this form has to be filled by the inventor. So there is part A, which has the contact information, name of the inventor, main inventor. If there are multiple inventors, they have to be mentioned, nationality, because your residence can determine certain rules of filing, official designation, contact information, and address. Now, information about the patent, title of the invention, which technical field the invention belongs to, brief description, the novel feature, the inventive feature, and part C, public disclosure and prior art, whether the invention knows some prior art, and you will find that whether there are scientific publications or patent databases whether there are granted patents on it. And part D, you could ask for, this is entirely an additional information which some disclosure forms may request from the inventor. Market valuation and licensing. What was the problem that the invention solved? What are the existing solutions? Have the existing solutions been successful? What does your invention seek to address, and to what extent it seeks to address an existing problem? The general features that are common to your invention. Specific features that distinguish your invention. Now, the specific features is where we try to understand the inventive features, the ones that has to be patented, that has to be claimed. So understanding the general features and the specific features will be critical, because based on that you will be using that input in drafting your claim. Working example of the invention. Now, is there a prototype of the invention? If it is not possible, is there a visual representation, say a drawing, and whether the invention has been commercially exploited, and whether it has been exploited abroad, and whether there are any dialogue, or whether the inventor had made any disclosure to prospective buyers and licensees.